And who knows, if it's not just me that's been touched by this experience. Like, I've had plenty of conversations with people that have mentioned that doing this regular practice has cured depression. They've stopped smoking. They've all these things, these cascading effects from this very strange experience. And that's been led by you in this region. So, props.
Thank you very much, man.
No worries, bro. Steve.
Adam.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
How are we doing today?
I'm very excited.
Yeah?
Very excited to be here.
We're excited.
In this room, talking to you. You've just come back from the States and I haven't seen you in forever. And it's just exciting when you get to catch up with someone that you haven't talked to in a bit. Don't you reckon?
It is good.
Yeah.
Well, how do we begin this? Tell me about the makeup of your early years that have led you to be the person you are now.
Okay, so I'm born in Geelong to a Macedonian family. Mm-hmm. When I was young, I didn't speak any English until I started kinder school. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
It's one of those, it's like, for me, it's one of those things like you know English and you probably don't ever remember learning
Barely.
it. But yeah. A version of English anyway. But I just remember always knowing two languages. And from what I sort of remember and what I've been told, my parents were speaking Macedonian to me when I was born and younger. I lived with my baba, my grandmother as well. And that's just what I did until I needed to learn English. So in kinder, I started picking it up. In school, I was pretty fine with it. Like, I think I learned it all very easily and it wasn't a problem for me, but I did go to a school that was a private school. It was which was very rare in the Macedonian community. So I was the only wog there until my brother came around. And yeah, it was a really interesting experience. Hated it at the time. Primary school, I was very intelligent. I was like top of the class, teacher's pet style in primary school. And yeah, that was really, I guess that was kind of a lifestyle, being this wog, going to this school with nobody else like me, having weird lunches that nobody knew what they were and smelled funny. We had graf, we had piperki, we had nothing you've ever heard of before. Maznik, if there's any Massos listening, they'll love this right now. But yeah, it was just, it was just an interesting thing because it was just everyday reality to me. Even though I'm born in Geelong, born in Australia, like everybody else, there's always been aspects of my life that are not necessarily what everybody else was doing. And I think that's a perspective I've got till this day. Like there's always something that I'm into that's a little bit different or something that's not quite normal. And I'm just kind of fine with that. I'm kind of like, yeah, this is just how we do it and how I've done it. And this is what we do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was like early days. Mm-hmm. Things changed a bit when we hit high school. Look, none of my friends, like good friends around that time, were people at school. I'd hang around with people in Geelong West that I grew up with. So we'd literally be riding our bikes in the street and causing mischief as young boys do. Mm-hmm. But that more so started to have an effect come into teenage years because then everyone's changing. Everybody wants to impress their friends. Everyone wants to be cool. I was obsessed with hip hop. Mm-hmm. So we were very into living a hip hop lifestyle. And that did get us into a lot of trouble. Yeah. But it kind of meant that I lived a couple lives. There was this life at school where at that point I wasn't top of the class, but it's because I didn't really care anymore. I knew I could do bare minimum and still get pretty decent marks and results because I was very intelligent like that. Mm-hmm. So that was what I did. I didn't cause too much trouble in school with the teachers because I was a bit more, I know if I can, I like to have them on my side because it meant I could get away with whatever I wanted. So things were smooth like that. And I was friendish with everybody, but not like close friends with anybody. My friends were outside of school and that was chaos. We were always just, partying, like I said before, and shenanigans. So I think that actually gave me a lot of perspective. Like I hated being at that school as I was there. I always wanted to get out of it. But as you grow up and you look back, it's like, fuck, that actually kept me out of a lot of trouble. Like that really kept me in line if I think about it.
You mentioned before that you were living with your grandma. Where were your parents?
They were there too. Yeah. So
everyone was together.
Everyone's together. Yeah. Again, that's just another thing that's normal for us. I think if you got any friends that are wogs, it's probably they get it a bit more too. Like, I mean, my family, my mother's family in particular are all overseas, and I got a lot of family over there, and they're all from villages. Like, I'm not that removed from borderline poverty or second world country, you'd probably say. So I go there, I visit my granddad, rest in peace, just died recently, but like him, my cousins, all of them, and they're still living in the village. They're living like very different lifestyles to live here. So I'm quite connected to that in a sense. And people just live together there. It's not a thing like you got to move out when you're 18 or start paying board or whatever. It's like, it's very communal, and I quite like that actually. I mean, like skipping around the story a little bit, but I'm actually there at the moment now living with them again. And I've done this there's been a few phases in life where I moved back and I've lived with them. And it's just because it's convenient and it makes sense, like for my situation in life, but it's not a bother. It's like we just live together, and that's just how it is, community, family.
Yeah, see, I couldn't, I was thinking about this recently, and I'm like, there's no fucking way in hell I can ever go back home. Like, I could not do it. Like, I'm sure I could physically do it, like they'd let me, but just, it would not be good for the soul in any stretch, because there isn't that community, and it's like, move on. So I have to make my life fucking be figured out at all times. Otherwise, I don't have that fallback.
But is that a bit more expected from them as well? It's like, you're out now, like don't come back.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was out from even before I was out.
Yeah. And that's the whole other thing. My brother too, I've got a younger brother, and he was out before I was, and he's never come back since. So that was a bit more his style as well. I guess I'm old school in a sense, a bit old fashioned, but I get that. And like, that's something that I've always noticed the difference between, having a very cultural kind of conversation here, but it's like when I have had Aussie friends or that has always been a thing, and it's never comprehended well in like our circles. It's like, your kids turn 18 and then they kind of send them off and get going. That's just not how we register life. It's like, I know some of my friends that never moved, that still haven't moved out from their parents. Like, I'm 33 now, so it's like we're going on and they're still going, but it's just like, they have no reason to, and so they don't.
What do you think that does to you pushing yourself?
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's got implications both way. Like, there is that I know that I've always got support and that I'm always going to have a roof over my head no matter what happens. Like, there's always going to be somewhere for me to call home and feel safe. But that does come with you to an extent, you lose the ability to put your back against the wall. And I know that now it's not so much a problem, but in the past it has been like, I haven't cared. I haven't wanted to try as hard as I possibly could because I know I don't need to. It's like, well, I don't need to worry about paying rent or doing anything. Mum can do the dishes. So I think it can have an impact to not push yourself if you let it. And like I said, I have friends that have not left home still. And I think a part of them, they haven't grown up because of that. For me, I moved out of Geelong when I finished uni because I understood that like I need to get out and actually experience another side of the world and leave my comfort zone just so that I can experience that and know what it's all about.
Yeah.
Very easily could have been one of these people. I'm sure you know them as well. People who are born in Geelong and will die here and like never leave the town even for a holiday.
I mean, that was going to be me until I went to New York, and now my whole world is being flipped upside down.
Right.
So I was happy. I was stoked. I fucking love it here.
It's beautiful, man.
But also, I can't stay here anymore. It's a very weird, I'm in a very weird place. But okay, so fast forward, you've got this very community-based childhood. You're a smart kid. You've gone into high school. You've become a bit of a brat by the sounds of it. You've gotten yourself into some trouble. Then what?
Then that more or less continued. Got a little bit older, started causing trouble in home house, things like that.
For those listening, home house is a nightclub in Geelong, just for context.
This turned into a very small town Geelong conversation in my head right now.
So fired.
That's where we are. It's a good conversation. Well, look, that all pretty much kept happening. I went to uni just because I knew I could get good enough grades to get into uni.
What did you study?
I did commerce. I majored accounting.
Okay.
Yes. And I did that because I didn't know what I wanted to do and I didn't have any ambitions otherwise. It was kind of like, this is just what you do. You finish school and you go to uni, and I was just following that sales funnel.
Yeah, don't worry, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Came out with an engineering degree.
Yeah. It's good use of money.
Yeah. Fuck. It's got $30,000 sitting there.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Oh, well.
But we learn. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But so I finished uni and I figured, all right, there's nothing keeping me here anymore. And there was always a part of my soul that knew I needed to get out and bust that bubble a little bit. So I was like, cool, I'm going to move to Melbourne. My plan was to move there for a year. And I ended up doing that.
Yeah.
Now, a big catalyst for this as well is because I did have a friend while I was in uni commit suicide.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so that was that was very detrimental. There was actually a handful that did around the same time and have it since. So it was there was this period in my life where that was just happening. I think it was part of just this crazy lifestyle and my whole friendship group. There was just this big pool of just people just living that way. And all of a sudden, fun and games escalated and people started getting hurt. So
I feel that I've had quite a few in my life that have done the same thing. And it generally seems like it's drug related.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a pathway where it becomes fun drugs that lead into not so fun drugs that lead into a complete flipping of your dopamine system and massive depression that leads to suicide.
Yeah.
It seems like the consistent piece, maybe outside of one. But I don't even know the details of that one to know. So, have you had a similar kind of...
The vast majority, yeah. Yeah. It's at least played a role. It might not have been the complete and only thing, but there's a pattern there for sure. Yeah.
So you've left...
I've left. I've moved to Melbourne. My friend who was from Geelong but had living up there for a little bit. He let me just crash on his couch for a while. He was running a bar for this restaurant group as well at the time, so he got me a job in the bar. The restaurants were starting to take off as well, and within 8 months, I was running one of the biggest ones in the city.
Not knowing how to run a restaurant, or
I figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm pretty opportunistic.
You love it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's what am I going to do? Go be an accountant now?
No chance.
Come on. It was happening and I was having a ball, and I just turned 24, and then all of a sudden it was bam, overnight pretty much, running this crazy restaurant that's one of the hottest in town. There's 3-hour waits to get in, getting paid 6 figures.
Yeah.
More than all my friends who went to uni and got traditional jobs did. I was I'm fucking killing it. I'm the man.
Yeah.
And got a very big ego there.
Yeah.
But there I had some really incredible mentors there, and a lot of what I learned there in terms of business, relationships, people, I've taken them with me this day. I still have their voices ringing in my head, some of the things that I learned from them.
What are some 3 key things you learned from these people?
I think probably one of the biggest things was to always focus on what's within your control and not waste any time of anything outside of your control. Circle of concern, circle of influence, if you want to get nerdy about it. But a lot of us focus on things that are outside of our control, which is simple things like the weather or the politics or little things like that. And the more energy we put into those things, it can definitely frustrate us, but we can't actually do anything about it. And so we're pouring energy into nothing. But if we focus on even the small things right in front of us, then those small things have an impact that does affect us because we can't control it. And all of a sudden, the things that we can't control become more plentiful. And so, yeah, it really taught me just to sort of focus in on those things and to have a solutions-focused outlook. Before that, I was always pretty, I don't know, negative wasn't the word I would have used at the time, but it's like I always would have made a joke about something or found the worst in the situation, where this sort of got me in a mindset of always assuming innocence and when dealing with people, and always looking to seek to understand and then be understood. Concepts like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. What else would you have said you took from it?
So I think it was a really cool experience because it also got me learning how to run a high-paced venue and learning how to manage like 60 people at a time and all that kind of stuff with it. So moving off there, it also, as I went through, it also taught me like how to not do things as well, and like how to take it downhill. It's like very up and very down. But the ultimate lesson by the end of this was actually that as much as I want to be, I can't be the dude who is working 100 hours a week, partying 7,000 hours a week, and still be satisfied with my life. I was burning the candle at every which end, and a couple situations took place that made me realize just how much stress my body was under. And so it made me start really looking towards my health. I guess one thing that happened in Melbourne, and I didn't think I'd experience this, but when I went to Melbourne, it turns out that it's apparently it's a lot easier, or it's a lot quicker and easier to come from Melbourne to Geelong than it is to go from Geelong to Melbourne. And what I mean by this was all my friends from Geelong expected me to always come down here, and nobody would ever come and see me up in Melbourne. It's just, for some reason, like, you got to come to us. And so when I was in Melbourne, it was actually a very lonely experience. Like I wasn't expecting that. I was like, I thought that up till this point, like everyone had kind of done whatever I'd done because I don't know, I guess I've got a bit of a leadership bone in my body like that. But here it was, people aren't following me. And so I had to just do my own things. And because everybody that I was surrounded by, more or less a majority were employees or co-workers, I was definitely friends with people on a very close connection, but there was always still that thing there. So, there was, I don't know where I was going with this now. Sorry. I think I started to get a bit emotional.
Oh, that's all right. Well,
but I wasn't, that was something, that was just something that happened when I moved to Melbourne. It was very lonely, and that's right. This is where I was going. So what happened was I actually learned to make friends with podcasts.
Yeah.
And podcasts were pretty new at the time, but I heard of this dude called Joe Rogan, and he'd only done a couple hundred podcasts at the time. So it was ridiculous. But he was somebody who was older generation, talking about things that I was very interested in a way that kind of made sense. And I was kind of like, there are people like in the future who are kind of thinking the way that I'm thinking. I hadn't experienced that before.
It's challenging when you're in your little bubble of regional Victoria. There's a big wide world out there, and there's a lot of different ways of thinking and a lot of different people that think like you. It's kind of finding your tribe.
It is, yeah. And like, mind you, this is like 2014, so 2013, 2014, so there's not as much internet, not as much as reach. Socials wasn't what it is now. It was definitely a different place. Like, we were just at the beginning of all that. So it was really cool. But that's where I spent a lot of my time, just listening to the podcasts and absorbing all this information. So when I did get to the point where I just fried myself, when I just zapped out completely, I sort of realized, like, all right, what's going on here? The people that I'm listening to and that I have a lot of respect for, something that they've all got in common is that they're looking after their health.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing that. So I thought, this is where I start. Let's get the foundations right. And pretty much overnight, I was just like exercising, nutrition, yoga. I was
overnight,
not ice baths. I was doing cold showers. I was doing breathwork. I was doing a lot of float tanks and a lot of yoga, going to nature a lot, just everything that I could think of. It wasn't literally overnight, but it happened very quickly. I just threw everything at it, and I was kind of like, you know what? I moved to Melbourne. The plan was for 1 year. I ended up staying for 7, but I moved here because I'd never felt like there was a place for me in Geelong. I knew I needed to get out and try something, but I also felt like what am I going to do here? Like, what's my job going to be? What role am I going to play? And I always felt like maybe I'll go and come back and bring something to the people one day, and that's not here already. But I did get to that point where I was like, whatever I'm doing right now in the restaurants and everything, this isn't it. So let's not fuck around. Let's dive in and let's find that now. So yeah, that started with health, and within 3 months I left the company and started a new trajectory into, I guess, where I am now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, man. So I took a few months off at that point, just to really, reset. I was spending a lot of time in nature and just kind of contemplating things and where I'm going. What ended up happening, it was really weird, but because I had no structure and no plans and nothing to do, I was like, how do you build a life based on what you want to be doing if you don't necessarily know what that is?
And what did you come to?
Well, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be doing, but I knew some things that were making me feel good. So I was like, let that be my schedule. Let me literally like write out a weekly calendar based on this, based on yoga and going to nature and taking mushrooms, like, things like that. But it was just like, it was just all basically mind body. That was my schedule, because I'm like, I'm loving this right now, journaling. And I wrote that down and I just stuck to it. No shit. Within a week of doing that, I ended up applying for this job and getting a phone call. My friend sent me the resume, and it was a job that I didn't even know existed. There was a facility in Melbourne. It was a gym, but this gym, it was very holistic health based. So it was somewhere where they were doing all the things that I was doing and incorporating it into their programs. And they were looking for an operations manager. So I was like, I've always been self-conscious about my weight and things like that. And so a gym environment brings up a lot of triggers for me. Not so much anymore, but then big time. So it's like, holy shit, there's a place that has everything I want to do that I'm doing right now that is basically my calendar, and they've got the skill set that I've got. And so, I ended up working there. Yeah.
And what was that?
It's called Fifth Element Wellness. It's still around now. It's evolved and changed a lot now. But that was pretty much the original wellness facility. There's a lot popping up now. A lot of people doing different versions, but they were the first ones in Melbourne. Yeah. And the concept there was just like, if health was my issue, I was like, if I want to make this something that's going to be a habit and that's going to be long term, then I need to be surrounded by the best, because you're going to learn the best when you pick up habits when you're surrounded by them. And that was the concept. I was like, I'm going in here, yes, for the job and the experience and everything, but really just so I can embody some concepts. That's where I spent the next few years. Was
the gym successful?
Well, it is still around. So and it's going quite well at the moment. While I was there, it had its challenges. There was definitely a few things going on internally there, which was cool because it was just more learning, more experience. But it's I won't get too much into the politics of it, but it is going very good now and is very successful. And I think if you're in Fitzroy North or in North Melbourne, somewhere, you should definitely go check it out.
And I like the concept a lot. I just wonder, there's only one of them, right? So there's not more than one. I mean, I would go to a gym like that if it was close to me, but it isn't. So it made me wonder, was the concept not able to be scaled appropriately? Or
not as it was, no, not as it was. It was we had a lot of different potential ideas and paths to go down, and that was one of them, doing some satellite clubs, but it wasn't going to work with the model that it was there, and not everybody wanted to go down that path either.
What was the model?
The way that it worked was essentially, it was very in-depth and thorough. So we when you came, you had to have a personal trainer weekly. So you couldn't just be a member at the gym and just go willy-nilly. It was like you had to be one. When you come, you'd get a thorough assessment done that would last a few hours, and we'd write programs based on that. But we'd also do blood work, get stool analysis, and like really look into into your body with a microscope and
Sounds
develop
expensive.
of that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It was expensive, yeah, and very hard to train that up and very hard to teach people how to do that. And there are ways of doing it, but it wasn't the vision here.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot more things have popped up now, and there's a lot of people doing concepts of it. So I think we're in an era We're in an era right now where people understand that you need more than just train really hard, and that's going to make you healthy.
Yeah.
So wellness is a much more accepted concept, and there's so many variations of that and interpretations of it coming into the world. And there's more and more modalities coming into play every day as well, because this stuff just goes so deep, like goes deep as the Amazon jungle. And so we're slowly getting ways of drip feeding that into the mainstream society. But as that's happening, people are coming up with these concepts of more holistic centers, whether it's a gym, whether it's a yoga studio, whether it's both of them combined, and you're doing some breath work or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of them popping up and a lot of people trying things. And I think in the next few years, we're going to see which ones of those really work and have merit. And there's going to be some cool stuff popping up.
And it'd be interesting to find a way to make it so that this holistic approach can be delivered in a package that is affordable to the general person, because it helps so much. There's so much value here, but it is so expensive, and it is prohibitively expensive for a lot of people.
100%.
So I don't know, it's a fair way to go, but I'm not smart enough to figure that out. But
it's a tricky problem. This is the thing, because the problem is you want something holistic, which by nature can't really be packaged up. But you want to be able to deliver it in a way that's suitable to people. I don't think it's an unsolvable problem, but it is a tricky problem because it is just so varied in terms of what that is and what really works. Like you and I both spent probably thousands of dollars on protocols and supplements and things. Yeah. And some of them were great. Some of them were not so great. And some of them were just steps to get to the next thing, which we're still trying. So it's like everything works differently for different people at different points in time. And in the end of the day, I mean, just to kind of shit on it all, it's still the basics that are going to make the difference. Like, it's the things that you do consistently on an everyday basis over a long period of time that are going to have the best effect. But that's not sexy, and it doesn't sell very good. Discipline and like
consistency.
Yeah, consistency. It's like it sells good as a, like, if you do some nice design and put it on a brand and everything, but what it actually means to embody it, it's trickier. But like I said, it's a solvable problem, at least to a degree. And like, I mean, I'm in the field, so like I'm definitely doing things to try and bridge those gaps and to try and solve that problem. That's part of my lifestyle. Yeah.
So tell us about what happened next.
So 2020 happened and COVID happened next. I was sort of at a point where I was getting ready to leave that place just because my values were changing and I was ready for something else. And then when COVID happened, it was kind of, that was the point for me. COVID, the first lockdown in Melbourne, the very, very first lockdown, that weekend was my 30th birthday. And so coming up to that, I was 29, turning 30, which it had never been a problem to me turning 30 before, but a few months before it all started coming up to me at once. And it was like all these thoughts in my head of the whole, like, man, it was always important to me to live life on my terms and to do things my way and not necessarily follow the uni model, which hadn't worked to me.
Where do you think that came from?
It's a very good question. Part of it, I think, was just my growing up in terms of having, like, being exposed to different groups of people consistently, being exposed to very different groups of people. It opened my mind a lot, and I got to understand a lot of different perspectives, and it taught me a lot of empathy. And I think my dad too, and my parents, they've just always been supportive of me no matter what. they've been very open-minded for like traditional conservative Macedonian parents. And even if they haven't agreed with everything I've done, they've always had my back on it. So I think it's just been a combination of those things.
It's got to be something more to it though, just because there's plenty of people that have very supportive traditional families that then just go down the traditional route. Like you are not traditional by any stretch. So
neither was my dad though, like to an extent. Like he's an electronics man. He can get all the circuits and put them together and make them. We grew up with Daytonas and pinball machines and all that stuff in the backyard. And so in a sense, he wasn't necessarily either. And he was always, my whole life, he's never worked for anybody else and done anything. And I don't think I realized it, but I think that did have an influence to me, because it was like, he was always working, but he was always around. He was always on his terms, like, and that's just what was normal to me.
So you felt that. So did you model like success from your father?
I must have, right? There's always been a part of me that's wanted to be able to find my own way and do my own thing as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, there was nothing that I felt like in this small regional town was suitable for me. Nothing stood out. I don't really remember having a solid answer when I was a kid, when you'd say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like nothing excited me. I used to just sort of parrot whatever I was told. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a scientist. And they're like, oh, you should be this. I'm like, all right, cool. That sounds good. I'll be that.
At one point, I think I wanted to be a leopard. You know, when you thought you could be animals? I don't know if you had that, but as a kid, I was like, I think I can grow up and become a certain type of animal. From like, I must have been like 5 or 6 or something. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a leopard. Or maybe it was a cheetah, the black panther or something. Anyway, so
you should follow that dream.
You should see me walking around.
Yes, buying you a suit. I already am an animal, so I wasn't.
Hey, there we go. All right, so COVID.
Yeah, so COVID happened, turning 30 happened. I started wigging out a little bit because I was turning 30, because I was looking back at the last 10 years and I'm like, fuck, that's how quick a decade goes. Yeah. That's what I remember thinking. When you're in your teens, you've lived 10 years, conscious years, but also it's just, you're changing so much that you don't really notice it. But with 20 to 30, you're very sober. Like maybe not sober literally, but like your mind is very lucid, should I say. And at the end of it, I was kind of feeling like I've got all these plans and all these visions and all these things that are happening, but it's like the race started 5 years ago and I'm still like at the starting line, not really noticing that it's taken off and that everyone's running. That's what it felt like to me. So I started questioning whether this me wanting to do things on my own term and go on my own way, I was just like, am I just being stubborn and stupid? Because I've experienced these things. I've had success in certain forms, but on the other hand of it, I was like, I don't have any savings. I haven't got like, my friends are at the point now who were the ones that I was laughing at because I was making more money when I was 24. They're all got like good cars and houses and they're getting engaged and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, have I fucked up?
Yeah.
So that started happening to me. And the bottom line was when COVID happened, there was a lot of confusion in the world and I had a lot of opinions like everybody, but didn't really know what was going on. And I sort of thought, in the end of the day, if this was the end of the world and like shit's shaking down right now, I'm not in a position where I can look after myself, let alone look after anybody else or be responsible for anybody else. And I think because I was really starting to become more of a man, that's meant something to me because I feel like, I do feel responsible for people and I want to be able to protect and provide people. And I wasn't there. That wasn't happening. So yeah, that was another big decision. Then I was kind of like, you know what? 7 years of my 1 year trip in Melbourne is enough. I'm going to head home. And that's when I came back to Geelong. And that's when I thought, whatever happens now, if we're ever in a situation like this COVID again, I'm not going to be in the same position where I'm just like scrambling and whatever. Yeah. Next chapter.
Tell me more.
So that's when I moved back to Geelong. Coming back to Geelong, it was very bittersweet because it was home and I always felt safe here and I love it here so much. But there was also ghosts around every corner.
Oh man, I get that.
You know what I mean?
I get that.
Yeah, there's shit gone wrong avenue.
Yeah, there's a story. You walk around and you've got a story for like almost every single point of this city.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that right now. I'm coming back and looking around and thinking, oh my God.
There's a lot of them, yeah, everywhere you go. And a lot of them were like, they might have been associated with friends who aren't here no more.
Sure.
Or they might have been associated with stupid shit that I did when I was drunk or something like that. And it's just like, what the fuck, man? Like all that kind of stuff everywhere. And as happy I was to be home, I was like, icky. I'm feeling the ickiness of it now. And I couldn't throw up. But I had changed. I did spend time learning habits that were better for me, but I also knew that it's hard to outrun your environment if you're not careful and you become who you surround yourself with. So I knew that it would be very easy to slip into old habits if I wasn't very careful. And that my antidote to that was pretty much like, all right, if there's ghosts everywhere and there's haunting memories everywhere, then the only way to combat that is to create better memories to overwrite these ones.
Sure.
And that was the plan, really. I came back. I started going to the beach every morning. Not what I used to do when I was younger, when I lived here. I was still awake in the mornings from the night before or sleeping, whatever.
Yeah, Eastern Beach really shifted in my head during COVID. I realized how beautiful that spot is.
Right.
I never saw it that way until...
Nah, if you grow up here, you think it's a bit of a shithole. It stinks. It's
so nice.
It's the opposite. It's so beautiful. See, I learned this when I was working in the city because I didn't have access to just the bay, just water, just little simple things like that. Like that's when moving out of here and going into that environment, that's when I really started realize, fuck, I've taken things for granted. I spent a lot of time just exploring the yachtways, exploring everything, really understanding Victoria is beautiful, especially around here. I think now everyone's starting to realize it because in COVID, a lot of people moved down from Melbourne. Like now a lot of people realize like, oh, Geelong's like fucking great.
Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah. But yeah, spent a lot of time at Eastern Beach in the mornings. Just me and Stefan, my friend Stefan, who you know, we'd go there and we'd just have our little D&Ms and talk about our feelings.
Cute.
Yeah. And we'd do breathing exercises and go for a dip in the mornings. Just a good way to start the day. And that was it. I didn't really have any plans or any big intentions, but I was like, let's just keep up the momentum. Then it started to get a little bit warmer and the dips weren't really doing it. So got an ice bath, took it down to Eastern Beach, filled it with water. We're looking around, everyone's looking at us. And then their faces when we start to get ice out of the car. Ice bags.
Yeah. You remember I was there. I was there.
You were the first. Yeah, man. Yeah.
So funny.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Because I was
like a world away.
Yeah, I was like training for my marathon and I was like running by you guys. And I saw you once, I was like, hey. And then I saw you again, I was like, hey.
Yeah, man. Something this little smoky, sleepy town had never seen before.
Good.
Yeah. It was very weird for us too, because like Stefan I won't speak on his behalf too much, but a lot of same friendship groups, so a lot of like similar ideas of what Geelong meant to us. He moved to Melbourne, similar timeline to me as well. So him and a couple others, there was just a few of us that were actually going through this moving to Melbourne experience together. But yeah, we'd what was I going with this now?
You're just telling the story.
I'm just telling the story, aren't I?
The ice.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone were like, it was really weird for us because we were doing this thing and people were looking, but we're used to people looking at us for the wrong reasons, and so those were still. The eyes that we were receiving, we were still feeling that judgment because normally if people were looking at us because we were doing something ridiculous that we shouldn't have been doing, but now it was actually something that was very beneficial. And fuck it, let's do it anyway, stick with it, keep going. And then, yeah, you were running, we're like, come down, you got involved. Some other people, Mon was one of the first ones as well. So some of the key players in Geelong, I guess, started getting involved nice and early. And then I thought, all right, let's turn this into a little bit of a thing. What I did learn when I was in Melbourne was that was just how powerful communities are when it's a community, when there's like something more going for it. And there were a lot of different things happening in Melbourne. Like you could just look up Facebook events at the time, and there'd be this this event, this workshop is here, this ecstatic dancing thing, this whatever it was, something just interesting, a bit more wellnessy, a bit more spiritual. I was just like, this is really cool to just be able to know you can drop in and to these places anytime and just feel at home. Now, I knew that there was people in Geelong doing all this kind of stuff, but I didn't know of anywhere that was sort of bringing them all together. Kind of like Fifth Element as well. Like that place was my home and the people there were my family. Like we were so tight and it was just the best. And I wanted to bring that feeling here. Because I'd been running these ice baths and these breathwork sessions there for a while too, I knew that they were a pretty incredible community experience. So I started adapting that into my own version down here. And I thought, let's do it. Like we were doing it already. Let's invite a few people just because, then let's start charging them a little bit just so they can cover the ice. And then before we knew it, it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and turned into what we now know as Cold and Conscious.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned community and the importance of that. How have you gone about cultivating a good community? What steps have you taken?
I mean, really, it was kind of making everyone's problems my own. That's what I was like, you guys are all going to make a loud bang about what I'm going through and everyone join the ride. And I'm saying that facetiously, but kind of seriously as well. I mean, like, I think I because I'd experienced that it was possible, I just went and did it. Like, it wasn't a comfortable thing, but I was like, this isn't here and this needs to be here. Let's do it. And once I saw that people were vibing and wanted to be a part of that, I felt the responsibility to keep that going. I think for me, it was... like for me, I think there was, I got very lucky in terms of it. If you're looking in terms of like, oh, you want to build a community or do something like that, it was the right time and it was what the community needed. Community in one sense, people will say the word and they think, okay, it's this group of people based on this thing that we're doing or whatever it might be. There's like-minded things. But to me, it's more than that. Like community is... there's different dimensions to community. So we've got this ice bath community that's Cold and Conscious, but we're doing it in Geelong. And Geelong is a community as well, whether you're into health and wellness or whether you're a banker or a politician or whether you're me 10 years ago coming out of home house hungover. Like we're all part of that community. And for me, it was about playing a role in the whole scheme of things, looking at it a bit more holistically. So what Cold and Conscious did was fill this void where we were in COVID and there was a lot of separation and isolation happening at a time where we probably needed more connection than ever. This offered people that connection. And I modeled it off, not the business, but the community concept. I actually modeled it off my parents' backyard in the 2010s when I was in my early 20s, because that was the spot. There was me and there was my brother and there was his group of friends and my group of friends and the other groups of friends. And like this was just our meeting spot. People would come, people would go, my friends, his friends, we all intermingled, all became friends with each other. People would just drop in who we didn't even know half the time. They'd leave. I'd like go out at 11 a.m., 11 p.m., go out to the club, come home at 3. My brother's still there with some of his friends and we'd keep going. And it was just, the point is, it was a place where like anybody could come and just be accepted and just like hang out. And there was no issues. Like we never had fights, we never had problems. And we had just so many crazy people walking in and out all the time. But it's a place where I just felt so at home and so comfortable, and everybody did. Like you talk about anybody who came to my backyard in that period, and it's just like, that was just the golden age. Sometimes my brother wouldn't even be there. People would just roll in and we'd rock up an hour later. They'd be waiting for us and my bubba might be there talking to them or something. But I love that idea of you can just come and you can just be you and it's all good. Like as long as you're you're not being a dickhead and you're being cool with it. There's a place for you here and no one's judging you. This is where having different perspectives from different worlds come in as well, because I think a lot of people say that in these wellness communities, but they don't mean it. Because imagine in a wellness community where you're doing breath work or something like that, whatever it is. But imagine if somebody who is an ice addict comes, and he might not be on ice right now, but he's got those traits and that personalities. I know that I was equipped to deal with those people because I've dealt with them my whole life. And I was like, I'd rather you be here coming down around me because I know that it's safe and I can look after you, rather than you feeling all alone on the streets and who knows, doing whatever you need to do and going crazy. Like, I'd much rather you be an absolute mess in my space where I know that you're safe and you're protected and you're cared for, rather than being out there on your own and maybe leading to the thoughts that got my friends to the places where they ended up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the energy that I put into it. Like, I wanted people to be able to feel that way there.
Yeah. I mean, you could see that by the way it kind of has developed. There's always been a very strong sense of community in it, and also an openness that you can be different. And I think that's led by you and the way that you communicate and the way that you are vulnerable around the people, that then it gives them the permission to be a bit more vulnerable. It's really special. Like what you put together is really special. And, you know, I can see that. I haven't been in a while because you moved it from the Friday mornings to Saturdays and I've been working nights, but you know, I see it.
Thanks, man.
So, fast forward, what? It's been 2 years now?
2.5, heading on to 3, I think. Yeah, 23, yeah, somewhere between that. Longer than I ever expected.
And and it's going strong?
Ups and downs like any business and community.
Of course.
Yeah.
How many people do you think you've had in total since you began at doing the ice bath?
In the thousands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most of which I'm guessing haven't done it before.
Maybe not their first time, but they have their second time when they come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always a mixed bag. Yeah, you're right. A lot of the people who come to these beach sessions are first timers, and you get a handful of regulars too. Yeah, we've seen a wave with ice baths and with breath work over the last couple of years, and it's as it becomes more and more accepted and more people experience it for themselves. People who would have been against it a year ago are now willing to dip their feet in. Yeah, and it's cool because you try it once and you feel why it's so popular. Like you know how good you feel by the end of it.
Yeah, it's wild,
and it works every single time.
It does.
You never get in, you're like, oh, that wasn't cold. I didn't feel that one. That was a dud.
Every time you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Every time.
Same story. Yeah.
I recently bought my housemate got a chest freezer, and he lined it, and then I've got my friend to put in a thermometer that turns on and off at a certain temperature point. So now we've got to figure out some water filtration solutions and maybe a drainage solution, but we've got a pretty much 24/7 cold plunge now, around 3 degrees. And the time period where I have probably had the hardest career experience was about March this year. It was just so intense. It was just so challenging. Like, the events were really struggling, and took a lot of big risks and lost a lot of money. And every morning I felt like I was going into this just war. I would wake up and be like, all right, fuck, here we go. Like, dreading looking at my inbox because of how fucking gnarly it was. Anyway, before every morning, the first thing I did was go in the cold plunge for 2 to 3 minutes. And I was like, I have to do this because if this is what I do first thing in the morning, the rest of the day is going to be not as painful.
Amen.
And I was like, fuck. And I'm telling you, it was not fun at all. Right now it's getting cleaned, so I don't have to do it at the moment. I will go back to it. But it's funny, I would wake up in the morning dreading getting out of bed because I knew I had to go do this golf. I was like, dreading. Because I couldn't break the promise to myself that I would go and sit in it, but I couldn't bear doing it either because of how shit it was. But then every time afterwards, you're like, ready to take on the fucking world. So, and I did my first ice bath with you guys.
Like, yeah, it was too.
It's with you guys.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So, like, it says a lot. And who knows, if it's not just me that's been touched by this experience. Like, I've had plenty of conversations with people that have mentioned that doing this regular practice has cured depression. They've stopped smoking. They've all these things, these cascading effects from this very strange experience. And that's been led by you in this region. So, props.
Thank you very much, man.
Thanks, bro.
No, I'm really taking it in at the moment when people are mentioning that, because I think for the longest time, I'd hear those stories from everybody, but there was also, I wasn't really hearing it, if that makes sense.
Why?
This is probably all just like my own internal shit that I'm dealing with as well. But it's like it is such a powerful modality on its own for starters. And like, you don't need me or anybody for that. You can, wherever you are, you can get cold water and it's going to work. So that's beautiful. But the experience and just like what's led to that for people, what they've been able to get out of it, the friendships and relationships that have formed within it, the blocks that people have come through by coming to these sessions and being a part of this community and the way they've opened up, like it's immeasurable. It really is, for something that was just so small and organic. But also it comes as a business, it comes with challenges as well. And it's, and so that comes with a lot of stress and a lot of other things too. I think for the longest period, I was really struggling with that, trying to figure things out and trying to go through things. And I was really struggling to take that in. When people would tell me their stories, I was hearing the words, but I wasn't feeling it. And I was aware that this was happening, but I didn't really know why or what to do about it. But I just wasn't connecting with it. And I think I'm actually just coming out of that hole now, like in the last month or so, to be honest, where I'm pretty inspired by it. And I'm talking to people and hearing their stories and hearing what's come out of it and really trying to be present with it. And I'm starting to feel it again. It's like, man, this is a beautiful thing.
What's changing?
I think, to be honest, it was me actually pretty much throwing in the towel and saying, I'm done with this.
Why were you done with it?
A couple months ago, I was just burnt out with it. Like, there's a lot of... I think the community aspect and everything was really, really beautiful. And what happened was that at one point, this is the way I kind of saw it. At one point, it got to a point where it was like, all right, there's two ways we can go about this right now from a business perspective. And I'm talking from a business perspective because I believe things need to be in that perspective if they're going to be sustainable. As much as it would be fun to just be a cult leader and like do things like that, which on Reddit, according to Reddit, I am a cult leader, so that's fine. The claim to fame.
Funny.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it is a business, and it was always set up as a business so that it could be sustainable. That being said, there was a point where it's like, either right now I can stay in Geelong and keep growing this deeper in this community and keep finding other offers and other services and other ways of growing and keep it here. The other option was we can start to pick this up and drop it into some other areas and spawn their own communities out of it. And there was potential to be doing that all around Australia. Now, I ended up choosing the model where let's go to Melbourne. Like, let's not go crazy everywhere, but let's go to Melbourne because I've got half my life in Melbourne as well. I've got community there. Like, let's start doing something there. And that's when Carlo joined in, and he started taking things just like absolutely popped up over there, which is really good. But that happened, and we ended up getting to 6 locations. Now, 6 locations is great, but the model was originally built for me running it. And so I started running into a lot of troubles where I'm like, there is a lot of people to be managing right now. With all the teams, we had multiple facilitators. We have people who are just set up crews that come to help out. And there's a lot of people, and everybody's reporting to me right now. And it was just a very hard balance for me because it also financially wasn't in a point where it can support to get anybody to mitigate that, any managers or anybody like that. Like, it just wasn't built that way because it was just built to be as cheap as it can be, this little model here in Geelong.
Sounds like a systems problem.
It was a systems problem. There's a few different problems in it. And like I said, every problem's got a solution. But yeah, it was just, I was stuck in a point personally, which a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in, but it was just like, there's just too much going on for me right now, and I can't do the things I need to do to get out of this spot right now because I'm buried in it. That's how it felt anyway. And it was hard. I think one of the biggest things I'm learning as well is to rely on people more than I do, because for me, it was just like so much of the guys and the girls who are part of it would come and would go above and beyond, and they were doing so much more than they were getting paid to do. And so for me, I was just like, I can't keep asking and expecting this of people all the time if it's not moving anywhere and going anywhere. And I tried so many different things, but I just didn't really work it out. And then I just burnt it myself out. Like, I just wasn't in a good place for so long. A friend of
6 locations in 2 years is not a bad.
It's pretty good.
Say that it's not going anywhere, but it doesn't sound like it's not going anywhere to me.
This is all in my head. This is what I'm saying. I've come out of this now, but yeah, I guess speaking into
it up in the process, or are you still
no. Wait for the redemption arc. It's coming.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
It's coming. Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm getting pretty micro in some of the details over it, but I guess the ultimate point being was just that it just felt like for me there was a lot to hold, and this was a lot more than I was expecting, and it's just, I was just struggling. I was really struggling, and I internalized my struggles.
Bro, you just got to be better.
Yeah, literally.
Just be better. Be better at running the business.
I know.
And then it'll become easier. And then you know what the fuck you'll do? You'll scale again, and you'll feel the same way.
I know, bro.
And you'll keep doing it.
I know.
But
the thing is, too many people tell me, no, you don't need to be better. You're good just the way you are.
No, you're not. Be better.
Thank you.
Seriously. Like, if you can't handle the scale,
got to be able to handle it.
You're not doing it properly. The core of it, right? Like, it's helping people. So there's a demand that's growing. So clearly there's something right there. There's something wrong in you. There's something wrong in the way you're putting the systems together, if at all, if there are any systems that need to be fixed. If you go back to the core of it, like what I said, what I'm sure you're hearing hundreds of people say, it's the same positive thing. So
cue the redemption arc, because it was when I was at that point where I was just like, and look, I didn't tap out. I sort of was like, winter's coming in. It's what I'm doing right now isn't sustainable. And I know winter's just going to be selling ice to Eskimos anyway. I pretty much told the team, like, look, I need some time. If you guys want to keep running it, just keep going for the time being. So this was just
what did they say?
Communities, mixture of everything, but they are still running there are still sessions happening and everything. But I was like, I just need some space. And I did. I needed to just flush some shit out and really get back to actually doing these things for myself. Like, I kind of found myself at a point where I'm like, I started this whole story to not alleviate, but to learn how to better regulate my stress. And I'm not doing the things that got me there in the first place.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah.
So it took a few weeks just to crash out and do nothing. And then I did start to get back into it. And that is when I started hearing the stories again. And that's when I started feeling it, because I was like, okay, I was just, my system was too stressed. I was like, mentally, I've created a prison in my mindset that's keeping me from feeling this connection with you and what this experience has done for you. And so once I kind of realized that that's the case, I realized that it was my mind. And I'm like, I need to get my mind right. Let's go back to basics and let's do this. And since doing that, I've been talking to people. I've been meeting, like, it's all coming back. Like, the reason why we started this in the first place is coming back to me. And here we are today, man. Like, yeah, things are moving. Things are getting back on track. We've got some pretty good plans. We've got some epic shit coming up. And there's a lot of changes too.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what you've got coming up? And
I can talk about a few things. Yeah. I won't mention everything just because not everything's ready to go and there's still a few angles. But at the moment, I guess ultimately we're finding a bit more stability in which sessions are going to be running and bringing frequency back to them so that they're there, because it turned out stopping sessions in Altona is not a good move because everyone fucking hates that and everybody wants to be going there. So we're bringing them back. For me, you know how I said before, it felt like there was two ways. Either we can stay in Geelong a bit more or we can go scale it and go a bit more broader. For me, like, Geelong is my home, and I've never found a way to fit in here, and I've never found a way, more specifically, to actually make money here and then make a living here to keep me here. I've only been able to do that outside of Geelong. Yeah. But for me, I've found ways to be able to do that now. So it's like, I'm coming back home and I'm here to stay now. And I do want to be involved in the community here a lot more too. Not to say I'm not going to be part of the other communities, because like I said, Melbourne is a part of me as well. And so I'm definitely there. But this is just where I want to be right now, and the depth that I didn't get to explore as a cold and conscious community in one place, I'm going to be exploring a bit more of that right now. So in doing that, we've got retreats that are going to be coming up in a few months. So we're going to be doing our first retreat. So it is a bit more immersive. Like, you can spend, it's a miracle the effects that we have from an hour and a half to 2 hour session in Geelong. But if we can spend a couple of days together, it's gonna be good. Okay. So that's coming. Most recently too, I've actually just signed the lease for a physical location, so we're gonna have a place to call home.
Yeah, nice. Well, that solves a lot of your problems, right?
Yeah, it gives us opportunities to try things that we haven't been able to do before. So but
brilliant.
It's all looking good. It's all happy. Yeah. And then, like, in the end of the day, it's just, it really is. It comes down to community, which has always been the message. Like, when I'm stressed, I internalize things because I don't want to let everybody down. And so I'll let you down by pushing you away. And that's what I did. But coming back into it now, it's like, I'm actually finding ways of asking for help and getting feedback, and it's really working.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I always thought I was all right with that, but now I've learned that's not the case. That's my weakness, leaning into community.
Fair enough. Cool.
Yeah, man.
Nice. It all sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it's good. I'm very happy.
So let's talk about the benefits of cold therapy in some detail.
Yep. The start one I like to just get off with is what you said before. Pretty much, I don't want to do this because it's so hard, but I'm going to do it. The best thing that jumping into a tub of cold ice first thing in the morning or any time really is for your mind. It's because we're wired to not enjoy this experience, even though we know that it comes with so many benefits and everyone's talking about how good they feel when they do it. I've done 1,000 ice baths and I still feel that way every single time. I don't want to get in. But if you can find a way to get in despite yourself, then you learn a skill that is just it's just so important in life, because you do learn how to negotiate with that voice in your head that does beat down on you or tell you you're not good enough or tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing something. It exposes you to your fears and to your discomfort, and it puts you in a stressed state, physically, biologically, puts you in a stress state, and you mentally start to experience all those stresses too. So it gives you a window into what that looks like, and it gives you the opportunity to face those challenges in a safe and supportive kind of way. So once you build a habit of doing that, you're unstoppable. Number one benefit. Number two benefit, still related to the mind, but it is just what it does for stress and anxiety and depression. So kind of double folded when you're doing it in a community, because you do get people who are very supportive, and that connection plays a role in that as well. Like just being a part of something bigger than you is a very big factor into why people feel alone and depressed. But also, you get a spike in norepinephrine, which is known to have soothing, calming, antidepressive effects. Your dopamine spikes 250%. That's what cocaine does. Like it makes you feel dopamine for, I guess, if you're not too sure it is, but that's one of the reward mechanisms in the brain. So it's what tells me to want to do things again. Hey?
That's lit.
Yeah. Yeah. So it boosts your dopamine up that much, but it lasts longer than cocaine or anything as well. It can last for up to 10 hours or so. It's cheaper, way cheaper.
So if you think about how much is a session?
$33.
Or okay, like a bag of Coke is about $300, $400.
Yeah, 10x.
Might last you like how long? An hour maybe?
Couple hours maybe.
Having a red hot crack. Or you can do a diet fast for what's the time period?
Yeah, just a couple of minutes. We do 3 minutes. That will get you all the benefits. Yeah.
There you go. Save 3
minutes, and it will last you about 10 hours.
There you go. You save that's 10 bags of Coke.
That's $3,000 in a day.
Yeah, like you're making money here.
You're actually losing money by not ice. Come on, guys.
I love that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that it is those things that is research that they do know 250%, I believe, is the number for dopamine. But the antidepressive properties, they're still experimenting them. There's a few different studies here. I've read one that was like, it doesn't even need to be that cold, like 15, 16 degrees will help you with depressive symptoms. But that's sounds like being a little bitch. Yeah, it is being a little bitch.
No, you got to start somewhere. It's okay.
I mean, it's just the thing with research as well. Like it's all pretty new, the research with science, and it's also with ice baths, and it's all kind of not quite there. It's not quite as good as we want it to be. Like I know people love to have a specific protocol and specific, like this cold for this long and it'll do this many things, but it's just not really there at that level.
I think I read like Huberman said something along the lines of like 11 minutes a week. It seems to be
that's one of the most recent studies. Yeah, that's one in 2011 by 2021. By Susanna Soberg, and she studies metabolism and the effects of cold and hot therapy. She's cold and hot, and she's one of the leading experts in that. And they did a study that showed 11 minutes over a few different sessions, so not at one go, per week is the optimal amount for metabolism. So it is optimal, but that study's for metabolism. Yeah. So that's where a lot of these studies are like, it's a very hard thing to actually study, and that's in immersion. So a lot of the research that we do have is based on cryotherapies. Not much on cold showers. It's hard to study cold showers. So it's like they might not even research a lot of these things. It's all very here and there. And it's good. It's nice to have them off models. But even since I got into it, there's been studies that have changed what people were like, this is fact and you only need to go in for 5 minutes or whatever, or otherwise it's all ego. Things have come out saying, well, no, you're a little punk for saying that. So that's going to keep happening. And I think it's good to have it, and it's important for scientists to be doing their thing and us to be looking at that. But also we got to look at the facts that there's there's evidence of this taking place from ancient Egyptians, ancient Greeks, like ancient Chinese medicine. People have been using cold therapy for therapeutic benefits for a very long time. And so I like to look at it from a bit of a different lens, because we know it's been used. We know that when you do hard things, you grow from it. We know this is a fact. So if you put yourself in a situation or an environment where you're forced to adapt, you will learn how to adapt and you'll get benefits from that. And that's what this is doing to you. And we've also in this little window of time right now where we have the most anecdotal evidence in history, because so many people are doing ice baths right now. And everybody is a renowned, unified, fuck yeah, this feels great.
The only downside I've seen is like having some nerve pain. That's been the only challenge I've noticed.
There's downsides, don't get me wrong. It's not a silver bullet.
Yeah, but that's only in the longer sessions, like the 3 minutes. You get out, you're good.
Most people will be good, and it's usually in your extremities where you get that nerve damage. And it's circulation and adaptation too. It's like your body's not very good at coping with it right now. So you get a bit of nerve damage and your fingers go numb. Usually it'll go away after a couple of hours, but I've heard it lasts for a few weeks as well. So it can be a bit annoying. Doctors have told me it's not that dangerous. It's just a thing. But there is. And it's not good for everybody as well. Like if you're, some people are allergic to the cold.
What?
Cold allergy. I've met a person who's allergic to the cold.
How does that work?
I have no fucking idea, man.
Wait, what happens to them?
They get irritations. They get allergic symptoms. They just respond badly to cold. It's a cold allergy.
Nah.
I mean, my mentors would probably say it's something related to your gut.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah, it's probably got some
microbiome issue. Some permeability. Yeah, but it's not good for everyone. Pregnancy, so it's debated. Some people froth over it. Some people say it's no good. But like I tell pregnant people not to do it because we just in case we don't know enough. It is a stress. It's a stressor on your body. It's like how hard would you exercise that's beneficial for you? Well, don't push your body any more than you'd exercise with breathing with ice.
Yeah, I think that. Maybe you can kind of. You're much more of an expert on this than I am. So. What do you think is a kind of pretty solid, basic, bang for your buck, weekly protocol, ideal scenario?
All right. This is I've got a few different ways of addressing this. And I think if you can get this concept, it's going to do better than any one specific protocol will do. How cold should you do it? As cold as you can possibly handle without it being dangerous and giving you hypothermia. How long should you do it? As long enough for you to not feel like you need to get out. So stay in up until that point where your mind shifts and you're like, okay, it's not so bad. I don't mind being in here. Yeah, it's still cold, but
probably
it's
like
all right.
2-3 minutes most of the time.
Usually takes about 2-3 minutes. Yeah. And how often should you do it? Every chance you get.
Like every day?
Every day, every chance you get. If you're ice bathing, if you're in a cold shower, if you're going past the creek and you see a little bit of water, jump out and get a bit of nature therapy and into it as well. Or if you're just walking through town and it's winter and you decide to take your jacket off for a block.
Yeah.
Like the more you expose yourself to it, the more your body's going to be forced to adapt, which means you're going to get the benefits from this adaptation. And it also means you're going to handle the cold better. So you literally won't need that jacket next week. It works quickly.
Yeah, winter's probably even the best time to do cold therapy.
It is. Because it's here.
It makes you hard.
Yeah.
It makes you tough.
So that's kind of those concepts. I think if you can get those around your head, it's going to be better than any protocol. And then it's also matching that with like, well, where are your limits and what's the minimum you need to be able to actually be getting your goals? Like just because you can stay in for half an hour doesn't mean you need to if that's not where your goals are. But as we said, rule of thumb, like 2 to 3 minutes at least. I do 3 minutes because that's a good time to get like most of of the benefits that you're going to get out of it without really risking any of the consequences of it as well. And then if you can do that 3-4 times a week, go for that 11 minutes. Why not? That's a good goal.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So like 2-3 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week.
Go at the moment, like the thing that Huberman said is kind of the popular one. So that's what most people are going to be like, yes, this is fact. This is the best. And for metabolism, it's the best we know of. So 11 minutes, why not?
And also the avoiding post-workout.
Yeah, that's a pretty new thing. And that's something, I mean, I was growling about that when we first started. I don't know if you remember that, but I always used to say that. But now there's actually science that's matching that.
Well,
so there's an example actually of how we didn't have science, but now we are learning that we do. So yeah, if you're cold therapy for recovery has always been a very, very popular thing. It's probably what everybody knows it for recovery. That was wrong.
Well, not necessarily wrong.
That's wrong if your goals are strength or hypertrophy or growth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you don't want any of that and you just want to survive, then it's
gonna help you with your pain tolerance. It's gonna reduce your inflammation, and so it's gonna help with the feeling of the pain. Yeah. So that's why it can be good. It's like if you're running a marathon a couple of days in a row or something like that.
And you're an elite athlete.
Yeah.
Needs to make it through.
You just need to get to the next day and keep doing your thing. That's when it can be really beneficial. Yeah.
But if you're in off season, you're training and you're growing and you want to get stronger, do your ice bath in the morning, then you work out, and then don't do any cold therapy for the rest of the day.
Yeah. That's it. At least the 4 hours or so, few hours. Yeah. But that's the way. Yeah, man.
Don't do it ever again.
Doing it straight after the gym isn't a good thing. And like I say it's not good for recovery just because most people aren't athletes. Like most people aren't in that situation where they need it straight after. So for most people, like do it first thing in the morning like you do.
Yeah.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
But if not, do it beforehand, before you work out sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and what would you, with Cold and Conscious, what's your 5-year dream goal from here? Like, where do you want this to land?
Look, it needs to land and belong in the hands of the community like it always has. I think a specific vision I'm always cautious with because it just changes so much. But at the moment, it is something that I just want to explore it and grow it out so that it can serve the community better. And at the moment, that means like we've got this one session that we do on the beaches which is cool, but let's have a home so that we can make it even more accessible. Let's start running certain events that are a little bit more specific for things. Let's start helping people with particular issues. Let's run these retreats so that we can get out a little bit more. Let's start doing courses so that we can educate people a bit better, and also start creating opportunity for the communities themselves. So people who are in it and who have skills and desires to utilize those skills to help people. Like we've established ourselves as leaders as community, and so we want to help people step up and rise together. And whatever that looks like, that's what really matters in the end of the day.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. I love it. Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate
Thank you, my friend.
Hope this was good. And I've got one final question for you before we call it a day.
Oh, my face just went blank.
Yeah. I saw that.
Shit. It's my soul that knows I'm going to like this one.
You ready?
Yeah, go.
Yeah?
Hit me with it.
What's the why of all of this? What do you
say again?
What is the why of all of this? What is the meaning of life?
Of all of this, just in general?
Just all of it.
Because we can. Like, we're here and we've got this opportunity. We don't know how long we're going to have it for. We don't know if it's going to come again or if that's the end of it. But what I do know right now is that I'm here and that you're here. I don't know if this podcast is even going to reach anybody, but we're here right now and we're breathing, and my heart's thumping just thinking about that, because one day it won't. And the fact that I could have done something today, but I held back, is the most terrifying thing I can think of. So why? Because we can.
Sick.
So we ought to. Let's fucking do it.
Love it. Well, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you coming on.
No, I appreciate being here. Thanks, man.
All right.